There you go. The Board of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District is called to order at 6:30 p.m. This is the regular monthly board meeting being held on September 21st, 2021. We have a quorum with all members present with the exception of Mr. Hubenak. Please join me in a moment of silence as you feel appropriate. Okay, please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right. Dr. Nivens, are there any rewards or recognitions?
Yes, ma'am, Madam President, we have recognition. Am I going to do it? Okay. I'll have Ms. Ludwig come up and talk about the recognition that the Finance Department just recently received.
Good evening. The district has received an award for our comprehensive annual financial report for last year. That's a report that we submit to ASBO. ASBO is a national organization of business professionals in school business. And when we submit our financial report to them, they judge it against financial reporting standards. And if we meet or exceed those standards, then we're awarded the award of merit. And so that's basically what the award stands for. And it shows that we take pride in a high level of reporting of our finances. I'd also like to bring up Michelle Reynolds. Michelle actually does the heavy lifting on this report. So I'd like for her to, she doesn't want to come. Come take a bow. A lot of people do participate in accumulating the information and preparing this report, but Michelle's stamp of approval goes on all of it, so we're very proud of it.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much. Okay. Are there any introductions?
Yes, ma'am, Madam President, we have 5 introductions. We'll have Ms. Music come up.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Nivens. So first of all, we've got Tamala Allen. And with Tamala are her parents. Tamala Allen is an August 2003 graduate of the University of Houston with a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies. She received a master's degree in 2020 in educational leadership from the University of Houston, Victoria. And Ms. Allen has 18 years of experience and is the new assistant principal at Hubenak Elementary. Tamala Allen.
Please stand. Are we shaking hands? Can we shake hands?
Okay.
Are we shaking hands? You can, yeah. All right.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats, Ms. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Thank you.
You'll get it. You're new.
Okay, next up, we've got Pedro Chapa. Pedro's here. Okay, maybe Pedro's not here. Qantas Floyd. Qantas, okay. Richard Guzman. Savannah Reed. Savannah's here, okay. And Savannah's here today with her husband and her 3 children. Savannah Reed is a 2007 graduate of Texas A&M University Commerce with a bachelor's degree in special education. In 2019, she earned a master's degree in educational administration from Stephen F. Austin State University. Ms. Reed has 13 years of experience in education, including 3 years of experience as a special education instructional facilitator and 2 years as a special education compliance coordinator. Savannah is the new Director of Special Education and Related Services with her Special Ed Department. Congratulations. Okay, no, Pedro Chapa did not show. Okay, I know he was here. Okay, so that is who we had in attendance tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vossick, is there any public comment?
Yes, Madam President. If you wish to address the board, you must fill out a card and submit it before the presiding officer calls the meeting to order. While speakers generally have 5 minutes to address the board, the presiding officer may establish an overall time limit for public comment and adjust the time allotted to each speaker when necessary to accommodate a large number of speakers. However, no speaker shall be given less than 1 minute. All of this is in compliance with House Bill 2840. Each speaker tonight will have 5 minutes. While the board values hearing from members of the public, trustees may not respond to comments as they are prohibited by law from discussing or deciding any subject that is not on the board's publicly noticed agenda. Speakers having complaints against individual district employees or trustees may only address the board after filing a complaint form in the manner provided for in board policy. DGBA for employee complaints, FNG for student and parent complaints, GF for public complaints. The presiding officer or designee shall determine whether a speaker has filed a complaint according to policy. Any speakers who complain of individual district employees or trustees during public comment will be directed by the presiding officer to stop addressing the board and will refer the speaker to the appropriate complaint policy. As you come forward, please state your name. Rocio Marin, you may come up.
Do I start now? Okay, so I wanted to talk tonight about LCISD bullying. Texas Education Code Section 37.0832, bullying is a single significant act or pattern by one or more students directed at another student and exploits an imbalance of power. Also involves engaging in written, verbal, electronic, or physical means, including cyberbullying that occurs off school property. On August 19th, my daughter and I were bullied, and I informed the perpetrator to stop. And in return, she threatened us with physical violence and assaulted me by spitting at me. I informed the principal, and he failed and refused to take corrective action. His words to me were, "I cannot tell her not to come to school." On Friday, I showed up here and never heard anything back, so I withdrew my daughter from Randall High School myself. Still today, I have no answer about her safety transfer. I wasn't assured that my daughter would be safe at school. I took matters in my own hands. Furthermore, I am sure that if I had spit at any of you or a police officer, I would have been arrested without question. Accountability without question. Your administrators who are not responsible to follow laws and policies about bullying are not being held accountable. Failure to hold people accountable is a message that you send saying that bullying is acceptable and tolerated because the people in charge will not be held accountable. To make things worse, those that are being bullied, who must defend themselves, will also be punished without proper reasoning. I've had employees across the district here that work for LCISD contact me and let me know that they're being bullied at work and they are afraid to come forward. Bullying disrupts one pursuit of education. It's almost as if our district encourages the wrong behavior in kids rather than fostering a safe environmental setting. Not every kid goes to school dreaming of becoming a UFC competitor. And the last thing I want to talk about is my daughter's best friend. Last year, 10 months ago, Jayla Alvarez, which her mother's here with me today, her name is Asalia. Your failure to take corrective action and allowing Jayla to be continuously bullied drove her to take her life at age of 14. Her family was cyberbullied, and as of today, they're still bullying after her death. Those students are still at the school continuing to bully other kids, and they laugh and make jokes saying that they've never gotten caught. Most despicable, not one member of the board or administrator reached out to the family to offer their condolences, and that is unexcusable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is L.J. Edenmeyer.
Good evening. I'm coming to you today speaking for myself. While I am not presenting myself as a spokesman for educators, a voice for teachers, staff, and administrators, I have been assured that my presence today is instead of hundreds of LCISD employees who have stood with the students and families of this district through one of the most difficult challenges any of us have faced in our lifetimes. So I will take the liberty of utilizing we. We have stood proud side-by-side colleagues, peers, and administrators, and in front of our students, those who even unwittingly, look to us for guidance and leadership. We've been bolstered by the support, the virtual parades, the contactless electronic gift cards, and even a simple thank you card. We have been wounded by accusations of laziness, selfishness, and the ever-popular indoctrination. We often talk about the choices people make when it comes to careers. What the requirements are to become a CPA, the exact best route to take to become a veterinary assistant, what paperwork and time commitment is necessary for getting your welding certification. And many teachers know the answer to these questions because we spend part of our time working with students to discover that information. And I guess that may lead to the one single piece of arrogant knowledge that most teachers carry with them, even if they are the only ones to receive solace from it. Teachers are the pathway to all other professions. Many teachers, however, would tell you that their choice of profession had little to do with selection and more to do with calling. And even though many of us could, most of us would never consider leaving. Because regardless of the partisan bickering, the character judgments, and the exhausting juggling of procedures and protocols, meetings, and minutia, we show up every day for the kids. We have proven repeatedly over the past 2 years that we will do what is necessary to give those students every ounce of energy, time, and grace we can to make sure they are successful, and when it seems that the world is against them. What we have asked in return is to be kept safe. We understand that this is a trying time to ask for mandates of any kind. We've seen boards and citizens across the country shamed, threatened, and even stalked. Mask mandates bring anger, and though vaccines have been a requirement for public, private, and post-secondary education for most of our lives, to do so now would invite an ire unlike any that we have already witnessed in this very room. So we go to work with a pandemic still roiling, with few distancing protocols in place and none mandated. We show up every day with students, some masked, some not, seeming to take turns on who is homesick. We watch our colleagues stay home, either sick with the virus or caring for children or family members who have become ill. We wait as, in some cases, we are not sure when a fellow educator will return to our campus or indeed even leave the hospital. There is only so much mitigation anyone is capable of. So many issues are out of our hands, but as always, we look to you to safeguard in every possible way. Fort Bend ISD, Katy ISD, Spring Branch ISD, Pearland ISD, Cy-Fair ISD, and even HISD. All of these districts have in place 10 days of covered leave should an employee come down with COVID. Here in LCISD, we are offered the opportunity to volunteer 2 of our own sick days to enter into a bank with the promise of 6 days should we get COVID. Frankly, a lottery to determine which outcome will be less painful, because to put plainly, we only lose in this scenario. Just prior to the pandemic, a study came out that 40% of all Americans are one paycheck away from poverty. Then we had 2020, and then the first 3 quarters of 2021. How many days did educators use to take care of family? How many days have they left before this year began? So we continue to show up every day in what is obviously one of the most dangerous, unmitigated environments possible, with what seems a hearty good luck. We haven't, to my knowledge, asked for any of the bonuses surrounding districts have received. We aren't demanding mandates. Have our backs. We face enough on a daily basis without constantly having to worry about what we will do if we or a family member gets COVID and can't work. And how many employees will make the choice to continue working because they can't afford to lose pay? We simply ask that as we continue looking out for what is best for the students of LCISD, you continue looking out for what is best for the staff of LCISD. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jason Kalunga.
So, a few months ago, I asked the board to wait on determining the zoning for the new Randall School. And a professional said that we had 1 more month left, but a request had to be made. That request went on deaf ear. We went ahead and, the board went ahead and accepted a map. In the same board meeting, it was said that the SES score would not affect the way we educate, and it's now affecting the way we educate. Recently, we've been in the news for our brand new school with students being afraid to go to school. You just heard from a nice young lady talking about what happened to her friend's child. This board approved a map that nobody had looked at and no professional had given advice on. It was not on the agenda to approve that map. It was not part of any meeting notes, and a map that seemed to be pushed through because one community wanted it to be pushed through. With that being said, we can't change the past. What I'm asking you is to find a way to change the future. I need each of y'all to reflect on the decision and understand how that decision affected those kids that are getting picked on and those kids that now had to change their education because I assumed that they got suspended. But now I wonder because kids are getting picked on and the bullies are going free. We need to ensure we're doing more research before we're voting on something that's going to change so many kids' lives. In the same board meeting, I spoke and said, the passion of that neighborhood, we need that passion at Randall. They wanted to go to George Ranch, we needed that passion at Randall. The reason I talk about their passion is we needed their votes as well. LCISD lost the opportunity to get a pool due to Proposition B not being approved. If we would have waited 1 month for voting on that map, that same group of people would have voted to get that Proposition B because they would have been concerned that their kids would have been going to Randall, causing them to be at a disadvantage with no pool. Terry and Randall have the least amount of Caucasian kids, and yet they're the ones that got hurt by Proposition B and do not have a pool. How are we going to be a diverse district and an equal opportunity district when we are not providing a safe and equal opportunity school for our students? I understand that this meeting is not about zoning, but I need to let everyone know that I don't want to see LCISD or Randall in the news anymore, and I'm sure you don't either unless it's for good things. Please understand your votes have consequences, and when it comes to Randall, those consequences are already showing in a negative way. How are you going to help our community fix this situation? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Curtis Pickering.
So I'd like to comment tonight about the recent hurricane. On midday Monday of last week, school was preemptively canceled for Tuesday due to the approaching storm. I'd like to state my disappointment with this decision. It has been clearly demonstrated during this past year that in-person learning is the top priority for our children's education. Therefore, I was saddened to see the canceling of in-person learning because of a mere threat of bad weather. As residents of the Houston area, we are well accustomed to tropical storms, and know very well how to deal with them. Based on what I read on the internet, Tropical Storm Nicholas presented very little threat to the health and safety of our community, and particularly to our children. I have not heard about anyone, young or old, dying from Nicholas, so canceling school was a major overreaction. Even in larger storms, children are rarely hurt or killed in our area. And children who are hurt or killed usually have pre-existing conditions, like asthma, obesity, or an inability to swim. Secondly, if someone should be making decisions about the health and safety of their children, it should be their parents and not school leadership. If parents do not feel it's safe to send their kids to school in a storm, they should have the option to keep them home. But other parents should be allowed to take the risks that they deem appropriate to provide in-person learning for their kids. Next, if the justification for canceling school was that power outages could lead to dark schools that would be an unsafe environment, then I would again defer to parents. Parents have the option to provide their children with flashlights for their safety, but that should be a parent's decision. And finally, I hope you realize that my comments about the storm were satire. That canceling school when an approaching storm was a proper decision to make. Whoever made that decision took the advice of outside experts, like meteorologists and community leaders, and decided that the health and safety was more important than in-person learning. Based on our location, we will always be vulnerable to hurricanes, but we continue to improve our infrastructure so that the next storm is not as damaging as the last storm. We improve drainage. We build our houses higher. We fix riverbanks, like on the Brazos, and we raise the top level of levees. We learn from past storms and make our communities safer for the next storm. The COVID pandemic is like a storm that arrived in March 2020. It was the appropriate time to cancel in-person learning for the health and safety of our community. We are once again in the middle of a storm of COVID, this third wave, but it is no longer necessary to cancel in-person education. We've now had 18 months to learn about this disease and build back with safer schools. However, it pains me to see that Lamar CISD has not learned from the first waves, and our children are not safe in school. Experts like the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the American Academy of Pediatrics have written extensively about what is necessary for a safe school during COVID. This information is readily available, and ESSER funds were allocated explicitly for this purpose. But this district did not take the steps necessary to make our schools safe. For example, improving ventilation, or the mandates that were just mentioned. I plead with you to listen to the experts and take the steps that will make our schools safer. Right now, every day feels like sending children off to school during a hurricane and hoping they make it home safely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Cindy Harden.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cindy Harden. Tonight I'm here to say just a few things. First, I want to thank you guys for allowing us to have masks optional this year. I know a lot of you have received a lot of grief for that, but it is truly appreciated by us as parents. I also want to share the things that I've heard from my kids and their friends this year. Their little lives feel a little bit more like normal childhood. First of all, I heard, "Mom, we get to play real tag where we can touch each other." My teacher has a big smile, and that makes me really happy. It's fun to eat lunch together. I don't get headaches at recess this year. We get equipment at PE. We can actually bounce a real ball together. We can play with other classes on playground. And I just want to say thank you for allowing this normalcy to begin to seep back into our schools. But I also just want to mention to you guys, as a PTO member, we would love to be able to get back into the school. It's really important to the kids and the teachers. They do need our help. It's something that I've heard from several teachers that they're just really ready to be able to have that parent involvement again. Right now, we're only able to be on campus after school hours. And I just know that a lot of those teachers really need that extra support. I've had, I think, 4 teachers email me about that, just requesting to be able to do something. They're sending home projects for us to do for them outside of school hours, but they really, and the kids like to see us up there as well. So I just want to say thank you guys, because I'm not sure y'all hear that enough. I know it's a hard job, and I just appreciate it. That's all.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rebecca Clark.
Hello. I'm Rebecca Clark. I've told y'all before, but I have 4 kiddos, all of which, well, one was a grad of Fulshire High School, Oh, I'm too short, okay.
You can pull the little.
Got it. That better?
Can she pull that thing down or no?
She pulled the lid down.
You wanna pull that down? There, or, yeah, push it, that's perfect.
Okay.
No, I can see.
So, and I also want to I understand that y'all's job is not easy, that when dealing with people, you're not going to please everybody. And I do recognize that let's just say I don't envy your position necessarily. So I also too echo a thank you for allowing some normalcy come back into our kids' life. I think that was the absolute right decision, and I hear nothing but accolades for you guys about that. So, what I want to address tonight were some disturbing things I and many others, I have several groups that I'm part of, and many of them were here at that last meeting. And I just want to talk about them because I'd like to not see them happen again. So, after an already long meeting, you guys know, there's a lot of people here speaking, and we spent a lot of time listening. Y'all did, and we all did, and I know that y'all were probably way more tired than we were and didn't have the option to leave till everything was done. But after that, then we had at the 11th hour a 4-page document entered into the board to discuss, to read in a short period of time, digest, process, and then adjudicate on. Okay, I really didn't even have words for that, but that's what happened. And after flipping back and forth through pages, everybody up here flipping back and forth, obvious confusion, not quite understanding everything that was in the document, and understandably so. I mean, okay, I'll keep going. Somebody expressed concern about this, that they felt rushed, and you don't make good decisions when you're rushed, and so the desire was to table it or postpone it, call a special session, whatever you need to do. Okay, I don't know, that was ignored or just everything continued. And we watched the expressed concerns of other board members about, explicit concerns were expressed, okay? And then after that was done, it just seemed like even though somebody would make a stance that was obviously did not feel comfortable with certain things, there would be a pause and we'd sit and wait. And then I felt like, and others felt like, manipulation was going on. I mean, it was, well, what can we do is there anything we can do to make you feel better about it? I mean, that was just, I don't know how that is productive. I also felt like it was a collaborative effort between a couple of people. So we didn't elect people to come up here and play games or use coercive tactics or be rushed into making decisions. I mean, these decisions are they're expressing our wishes as every parent, and I know everybody has different ones, but to represent our kids and to protect our kids. And I don't feel like anybody should be rushed into decisions because they're never wise when you're rushed, okay? And I don't like seeing when people have expressed concerns and then end up capitulating. I don't know if you felt pressure or wanted to go home. I mean, I understand that, but I just didn't understand it, and as did many others, felt the same way. So I was just shocked, many others were shocked, and as a concerned citizen, a taxpayer, a registered voter, a parent of 4 children, I would appreciate if there would be a better procedural protocols on that type of a thing. In the future, if there's a document or something that people need to look over, they need to have enough time to do it. And at that time, at the meeting, during that short amount of time, and after long and arduous process already, was not the time. And so I just want to bring it to the attention. I don't know if you guys were aware of what was happening or if you just were ready to go home, like I say. And like I say, I would understand that, but I wanted to bring it to the attention because it was very noticeable. And to me, it was not excusable. So that's what I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all, Madam President.
Right. Are there any board member reports? Mr. Welch?
I'll tell about Catholic Charities held an event. Their headquarters is across the street from Pink Elementary. It's a great organization that does a lot of good in the community. They held a fundraiser recently which honored Dr. Randall, the former superintendent, so I was invited. And I went there, and it was just a good evening of honoring him and fundraising for that charity. That was since our last meeting.
Is your microphone on this? We have a new microphone system.
I'm sorry. I did. I was there too, and it was very nice. And not only was it great for Dr. Randall, but it really highlighted the Mamie George Center that's right across from Pink and what they do for our community, which is good to see too. And several of us were at the Chamber of Commerce, Central Chamber of Commerce breakfast on the Bend, where Dr. Nivens hit it out of the park again. He comes in and he speaks, and everyone enjoys listening to him. So we thank him again for being a shining star for our district. And he was there last night at another meeting. I just have him all over town for Delta Kappa Gamma, and the teachers there were very pleased to listen to you speak.
Yes, myself and a couple other board members went to the dedication for Dr. Thomas E. Randall High School, and to see the community come out and support Dr. Randall, from previous students to his classmates from back then, to see the building. It's a beautiful campus, and there's some beautiful things going on at that campus, but to see that torch kind of be, that torch that's lit for so long, be ceremonially passed over to Dr. Nivens, but the event was great, so, yeah.
Any other board member reports? Dr. Nivens and I got to tour a few of the elementaries. That was very sweet. They bring a lot of joy just getting to be around the little ones, and lots of good things going on in our district, so I enjoyed that time. All right.
Oh, there's one more thing.
Oh,
Well,
yes.
it's not really necessarily a report, just something that school board members, we hear a lot of the negative talk. And a lot of this stuff is stuff that's sometimes out of our hands and not necessarily following the right chain of command. We get a lot of things that, and when we talk to these people, these citizens, these concerned parents, all that stuff, and ask, like, well, have you talked to the school yet? Have you gone to the principal? Have you talked to the teacher? A lot of it's no, we have not. A lot of people I'm seeing are going on a Facebook page and just not going there first without going to the source. And so as a school board trustee representing District 1, I would like to encourage our residents, our teachers, our students, our parents of students, our constituents, our taxpayers. If we see something that needs to be addressed, let's go to the source. And then when we go to that source, let's also come with a solution or an option to help out, or something that we can support and say, you know what, hey, I'll volunteer here. I'll help do this and all that. Instead of getting y'all are doing this wrong, let's get, well, hey, I would like to come alongside that. So I think this is our community. This is everyone's school system. So I think we can all come to the table with solutions, and all that. So that's it.
Thank you.
I have one thing real fast. The Fort Bend County Fair starts on Friday. So we have a lot of kids in our FFA programs that have worked really hard and will be showing their animals. And just kind of, if you're interested, go out there and check them out.
Are you going to be in the parade? No? Okay.
I'll be at the school board conference.
That's right. That's right. All right. You can wave at the, all right. Dr. Nivens?
Yes, ma'am. I do have a report, actually. It is an honor to serve Lamar CISD. And as Mr. Lambert said, a ceremonial torch was passed from one of the greats to me. And so I appreciate Dr. Randall and all his leadership. We, again, I've been on campuses, and I make sure that I'm visible on campuses. One is to make sure that our staff are getting the needs, that they're getting their needs met, that our principals are getting their needs met, but also that our students are being taken care of. And I just want to say how marveled I am at the resiliency of our young people. And, you know, a lot of us haven't taken the time to really talk to kids about the pandemic and how it's impacting them. And when I see them in school every day and they're just doing what they do, it reminds me that we can still learn a lot from our young people because they are happy to be there and they are just in school trying to learn the best they can. And, you know, I often talk about, you know, it's the adults that have to make sure that we leave a world to our students that's worth taking and that's worth moving forward. And so as I've been talking to all of our community groups, I've been issuing a challenge. And the challenge is that, you know, we're all tired of the pandemic and we're all tired of saying one more day, one more month. We're all tired of that. We're tired of we're tired of pushing through. And as we get tired of pushing through, what we do is we lash out. And, you know, we may have someone who is about to get evicted, lost a paycheck, lost a job, maybe lost a loved one, and then the morning bus route is late because we're 50 drivers short. So the morning bus route is late, and that person has all that anger built up, and then when the bus driver comes up, that person lashes out at our bus drivers. And it's not the bus driver's fault. They don't mean to do that to the bus driver, but that's just the last thing that happened, and boom, here we go. And so I'm issuing a challenge to all the adults that as we are pushing through this and as we are tired, let's be mindful of how we respond to one another. Let's be mindful of how we disagree, because we can still disagree and be kind and gentle. We can disagree and still be friends and still go to lunch and still have chocolate cake like I like to have. But we don't have to disagree and be hateful, and because our students are watching us. And I will keep saying that because I want to make sure that they don't take that forward and assume that that is the appropriate way to respond when you disagree. And again, I know we're tired, but we will thrive through this. And so I appreciate the concerns, I appreciate the praises, and just know that we're going to do the very best we can for your children, because they're our children too. Thanks.
Okay, at this time, we'll take action on the consent agenda and the current action items. Starting with the consent agenda, are there any items the board would like to pull at this time?
I would like to pull in B, goal planning, number 10.
That's on the consent,
Correct.
That's
On the consent.
as action.
No,
Any-
is it?
Any on the consent agenda?
I apologize, my
That's
fault.
good, that's all right. Did you say something?
No, I misspoke. Mine is in the action, not consent.
I want to have a discussion, I guess I have to pull it to do it. 10A1. I'm sorry, that's,
That's action.
That's information?
that's information.
Okay.
Zach, stop, dude, you got me all confused, man.
Anything on the first page?
Right.
Thank you.
Come on, action and info and action, come on now.
Second page, okay, so Zach, yours was, so, okay, right, so anybody on the, okay, so now action?
On the consent agenda, I'm sorry, do we need to pull Q? Because we don't,
No, if we don't have if you don't have a nomination, you don't have to.
Somebody wants to make a nomination.
okay, so we would just include it in the consent agenda, just without a
Yes.
name, okay.
Yes.
So, moving on to action, if there's no consent agenda. Okay, so on the action items,
I would like to
Mr.
pull in goal planning B, number 10.
number 10, okay? Any others? Mr. Welch, did you say? Oh, you're-
It's an info item.
So that'll be discussed automatically with Mr. Welch is wanting to discuss.
Yes.
And are we discussing B9, board operating procedures?
I sent out an email, we're going to postpone that until.
Okay.
So, well, do we just want to
So-
make a motion on that then, right? Do we need to pull it now?
We can pull it and say no action taken.
Okay. Good call, Mr. Hunt. Any others? Should have left it on. Thank you. Okay, so we will pull, any other action items to be pulled? Okay. So then I will read. Let's see. So the current consent agenda will be 8A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, and action items A, 9A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Do I have a motion to approve the current consent agenda and action items with the, sorry, new verbiage, with the exception of B, 9, and 10 on the action items?
That's right. That's good.
Okay, Mr. Welch makes a motion.
I'll second.
Ms. Danziger seconds. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I call for the vote. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, none opposed, motion carries. Okay, so we will now read the resolutions, beginning on page 33.
Whereas National Character Counts Week is celebrated across the U.S. on October 17th through 23rd, 2021, and whereas the well-being of the community, the state, and the nation requires that our young people become involved, caring citizens with good character, and whereas the public good is advanced when young people are taught the importance of good character and the positive effects that good character can have in personal relationships, in school, and in the workplace, and whereas Lamar CISD recognizes the need and has taken steps to integrate the values of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship into teaching activities. Therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District declare October 17th through 23rd, 2021 as Character Counts Week in the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District.
Thank you. The next is on page 34. Whereas National Custodial Worker Recognition Day is celebrated throughout the United States on October 2nd, 2021, and whereas this day recognizes the importance of a clean, well-kept learning environment, and whereas custodial staff members are valuable members of the educational team on our campuses, and whereas the assistance of custodial staff members is particularly important in the daily activities and operations of a school district, and whereas they serve our educational community by providing their talent and efforts in supporting students and staff. Therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District declare September 22nd through October 1st, 2021 as Custodial Worker Recognition Week in the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District.
The next one is whereas the Human Resources Department is instrumental in recruiting, selecting, resourcing, and retaining quality staff in support of providing an excellent education for all students. And whereas HR plays a key role in fostering satisfaction and loyalty among employees by allowing for professional growth and development. And whereas HR monitors and manages current and future workforce trends, organizational culture, legal and legislative trends, and ethical and social responsibilities. And whereas HR is an important part of district leadership and is vital to the overall productivity and efficiency of the district's workforce. And whereas it is a valued and respected department that sustains the district's most important asset, its people. Therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of Lamar CISD School District declare October the 13th, 2001 as Human Resources Day in LCISD.
Whereas the abuse of drugs, tobacco, and alcohol has reached epidemic stages in our nation, and whereas visible, unified efforts at prevention education are the best ways to reduce demand for illegal drugs, and whereas October 23rd through the 31st, 2021 has been declared nationwide as Red Ribbon Week, and whereas our community will join with others throughout the nation to demonstrate its commitment to a healthy, drug-free lifestyle by wearing and displaying red ribbons and participating in drug-free awareness activities during this week-long observance. And whereas the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District is committed to a drug-free community and has committed its efforts and resources to drug abuse prevention education. Therefore, the Board of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District declares October 23rd through the 31st, 2021 as Red Ribbon Week in the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District and encourages the district staff, students, parents, businesses, and community members to support and participate in drug prevention activities.
Thank you.
All right, the next one, whereas Texas Safe Schools Week is held in conjunction with America's Safe Schools Week on October 17th through 23rd, 2021, and whereas schools make substantial contributions to the future of America and to the development of our nation's young people as knowledgeable, responsible, and productive citizens, and whereas excellence in education is dependent on safe, secure, and peaceful school settings, and whereas it is the responsibility of all citizens to enhance the learning experiences of young people by helping to ensure fair and effective discipline, promote good citizenship, and generally make schools safe and secure. And whereas all leaders, especially those in education, law enforcement, government, and business, should eagerly collaborate with each other to focus public attention on school safety and identify, develop, and promote innovative answers to these critical issues. And whereas the observance of Safe Schools Week will substantially promote efforts to provide Lamar CISD schools with positive and safe learning climates. Therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District declare October 17th through 23rd, 2021 as Safe Schools Week in Lamar Consolidated Independent School District.
Whereas School Bus Safety Week is celebrated throughout the United States during the week of October 18th through 22nd, 2021, and whereas School Bus Safety Week recognizes the importance of transporting students safely to and from school and school activities, and whereas transportation staff members are valuable members of the educational team, and whereas the expert assistance of transportation staff members is especially important in the activities and operations of a school district, and whereas those staff members are diligent in safely transporting our students and staff. Therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District declare October 18th through 22nd, 2021 as School Bus Safety Week in the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District.
Whereas School Lunch Week is celebrated throughout the United States during the week of October 11th through October 15th, 2021, and whereas the National School Lunch Program has served our nation admirably for more than 60 years through advanced practices and nutrition education, and whereas School Lunch Week recognizes the importance of a nutritious school lunch program, and whereas child nutrition staff members are a valuable part of our school's educational teams, and whereas the assistance of child nutrition staff members is vital in the daily activities and operations of a school district, and whereas they serve our educational community by providing nourishment for students and staff, therefore be it resolved that the trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District declare October 11th through 15th, 2021 as School Lunch Week in the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District.
All right. Lots of resolutions. Thank you all. Okay, so we will begin with the pulled action items. First one is 9B9, which is the discussion of board operating procedures. Actually, we'll go ahead and, in order to allow all of the trustees to be present and participate in this item, I move that we table this item until, for the board operating procedures until further notice. Do I have a second? Ms. Bronzell seconds. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. All right.
Aye.
Thank you. None opposed. Motion is tabled, or item is tabled. Okay, the next one is 9B10, Mr. Lambert.
I wanted to pull this just for the opportunity to have a Cliff Note summary of this explained to the community so that everyone watching and here can understand fully what this is and what this is about, because bonds are just a good educational piece for everyone.
I don't think to discuss it.
Yeah.
So, we've been able to, or we have a very good opportunity right now to save some money on our outstanding bonds by refinancing them. So I have Terrell Palmer here to give the Cliff Note version and tell you all how much we can save.
Happy to do that. As you know, we've had numerous bond issues over time, and you have a 2012, a 2013, and a 2016 that were issued, obviously, several years ago, when interest rates were much higher than they are right now. The average rate on those bonds is 4.57%. And so relatively, that is a much higher rate than what we can do right now. As a matter of fact, we have estimated that the new rate on the bonds would be 2.25%. And so that's almost cutting the interest rate in half on all of these bonds. The difference in that, the difference between those two rates translates into debt service savings, and we're expecting to save as much as $45 million with this refinancing. So it's an excellent opportunity. One of the calculations that we do on these refundings is divide the amount of savings by the amount of bonds that we're issuing, and 5% is considered to be a significant amount of savings. With this transaction, we're hoping to save 25%, so 5 times our minimum amount of savings. So I think it's an excellent opportunity, and we're certainly very happy to bring it to you.
Yeah, thank you. Hearing that out loud in a meeting that's a pretty great thing right there.
Yes.
That really is great.
Yes, it is. I've been, and Jonathan and I have been in this business for, a long time, let's say over 30 years. And I do believe that this refunding will be the most successful refunding that I've ever had in my 30 years. To get almost 25% savings will be remarkable to really the district and its taxpayers. Unfortunately, it doesn't really turn immediately into dollars that you can go and build a new elementary school or build a new facility, but it does create capacity for that next bond election to be able to have that capacity where you're almost having free bonds that can be issued within the current tax rate. So again, I think it's an excellent opportunity, and we should be able to lock these interest rates in October and to be able to close it in November.
Thank you, guys.
That's excellent, thank you. It's being good stewards of our tax dollars right there, so thank you all. Okay, so I think that is it. So I need to make a motion. Oh, yes. Do I have a motion to consider, I need to read that, do I? Consider approval of an order authorizing the issuance of Lamar Consolidated Independent School District Unlimited Tax Refunding Bonds, which may be issued in one or more series, approving the preparation of an official statement and enacting other provisions relating thereto. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Lambert makes a motion.
Second.
Mr. Hunt seconds. Is there any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, none opposed, motion carries. Okay, so we are now on to the information items. We have some presentations on our information items.
Yes, ma'am, we do. We do. First, we have an update on our virtual instruction by Dr. Musich.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Nivens. I'm going to present to you this evening an update on virtual instruction that we launched on September 13th. Originally, if you look at, let me find my clicker here. It began on Monday, September 13th, and originally we had 805 students that were identified in the K through 6 grade programming. Programming for the K through 5 ends on January 18th, which is the end of the second 9-week period, as well as 6th grade programming ends on December 17th, which is the end of the first semester. As you begin to look at the program, we have a combination of synchronous and asynchronous learning that is happening at this point, and it is led by LCISD teachers. It is also following our LCISD scope and sequence, and if you remember the last time we talked about virtual instruction, because we were starting it so late, we were going to compact the curriculum to ensure that we were covering anything that children would have missed, and we have done so. As we began to look at a parent orientation, also was launched on Thursday, September 9th, and we had close to 400 parents in attendance via Zoom for virtual instruction. The weekly routine of what this looks like is it is a Monday through Thursday program. It is synchronous with the teacher and classmates on Zoom, and so that's whole group. That would be small group with student conferencing and tutorials. There's also asynchronous activities that are occurring throughout the week. Friday is an assigned asynchronous day for all of our kids so that our teachers can plan, be provided professional development, reach out to parents, and provide any possible needed tutorials as well as we move through this programming. The teachers are also teamed, one teacher who is teaching ELA and social studies and one teacher who is teaching math and science. One of the lessons that we have learned from COVID is that it takes a lot to provide virtual instruction, and we felt it was beneficial for our teachers to be able to focus on a couple of subjects at one time, and so they're team teaching. So when you look at the schedule, and you have an AM session, and then you have a PM session, so that you have a group A with ELAR and social studies and math and science, group B. You can see how that first session runs from 7:30 to 10:45. Then there's lunch, teachers' conference period happens directly after that, and then the afternoon session occurs at that point as well in the afternoon. Many of you have heard about Senate Bill 15, so we wanted to provide you some information about really and try to articulate what that guideline is. There's still a lot of information being provided. There's a lot of disconnect in the guidelines as well and qualifications to get the funding. And so currently right now we are committed to ESSER funding in funding our virtual instruction. We're continuing to look obviously at all of the specific details. So when you look at it was passed by the state legislature, and then on September 16th it was signed by the governor. The law states that LEAs may receive full funding for local remote learning delivered via synchronous instruction, asynchronous instruction, and or both. Also says that the number of students in remote instruction cannot be more than 10% of the entire district's enrollment. What does it allow for? When you look for it, it allows for the establishment of additional criteria. Remember, we did not cite anything as far as additional criteria in regard to passing performance. We did say that UIL activities would not be offered in this program and or school and clubs. But when you look here, it says that we are able to establish at that point, when the law passed, we could establish additional criteria. It says that we can also remove a student from remote learning if we are providing a process to ensure that each student and parent has sufficient notice and opportunity to provide input before the removal. And so remember, we talked about what were those points. And so looking at the progress report time, continuing to communicate with the parent, trying to support the child, continuing to talk to the parent, and at some point the next grading period might be a point where we have a conversation where we need to pull the kid from the programming. As we look at the requirement for ADA funding, and so the overall campus or district has to have a C or higher to even be eligible for the funding. You have to have at least one of the STAR tested areas that would be involved in programming, which we do. Families must have an on-campus option within the school district, and we do that as well. We have to administer the assessments to students enrolled in local remote learning in the same manner as we would with on-campus students, and that would be our MAP testing and our universal screeners or our benchmarks or assessments. We still need to do that with our virtual students as well. As we look at, it says that we provide student opportunities to participate in any extracurricular activities sponsored by the LEA or UIL, and in this case, it's really down to UIL academics because that is what is offered at the elementary. And sixth grade does not have sports in the UIL competition area. Meet needs of and comply with all federal and state laws and policy with respect to students with disabilities and English language learners or emergent English learners. Eligibility for funding if a student received remote instruction for the majority of time last year, so it was about 88 days. So when you look at that, these are those students that you're not able to receive funding for. And so those include, they must have achieved satisfactory achievement or higher on each STAR assessment administered. So if they did not receive a satisfactory achievement, you cannot pick up funding for that. Had a number of unexcused absences, that is 10% of fewer out of all instructional days. So 10% of those total days they could not have missed. And earned a C or higher in the foundation curriculum. So if they failed classes and they were in majority instructional, virtual instruction last year, you would not be able to pick up that funding. If a student did not receive a majority of the student's instructional time in the school year, so if this doesn't qualify for them, then this criteria would not apply. So when we look at, before I move into that, so again, this would not apply for those kids that did not spend a majority of the time. When you look at where we were with 805 students at this point, and I want to tell you that we have launched, at first, we accepted 975 kids. By the time we launched the program on September 13th, it was 805 students that wanted to participate in the program. Parents wanted their children, a lot of parents wanted their children at school, and were pulling them from the program and saying that they were having a productive time and felt safe in the on-campus learning. Then as we continued to launch after the orientation and then kids began to participate in virtual learning, we also saw a dip of kids pulling from the program and staying and remaining on campus learning. And our current number currently right now is 702, and we feel we feel that that's not going to shift much and that they will be committed until that second 9-week period or the first semester. So you have an idea of what that would have looked like with Senate Bill 15. Currently right now with that 805, we're at about 27% of those kids that would not qualify for 805. When you look at 702, it's approximately 29%. So the other numbers didn't hit and didn't adjust drastically, but it was a 2% jump when you look at a total across the board. So there was 203 out of the 702 that would not qualify for funding when we look at 702. Eligibility for the current year, so if you didn't meet the criteria of being in virtual instruction, then the only way you could enroll would be you'd be enrolled in the district, have access to in-person services at the district, and have fewer than 10 unexcused absences while enrolled in remote instruction over a 6-month period. And TEA is also going to help us to ensure that our data is correct, which we believe our data is correct. We always believe our data is correct, but we are going to double check to make sure. So not all of these kids would receive funding from SB 115. Some of the frequently asked questions that we're hearing, can we enroll our student in virtual learning? And we put a hard and fast at this point stop on that. And a lot of that is due to staffing and the adjustment and disruption to the on-campus environment. If we were to add any additional kids at this point, it would disrupt the on-campus environment because that's where the teachers are coming from right now, which is where our majority of our kids are. The other aspect, can my child participate in school clubs, UIL, and school events? Originally, we restricted this, but SB 15 allows for participation. And so different clubs, they would be able to participate and or UIL academics if it's offered during this programming time. So, do you have any questions for 3,000 kids?
3,000 kids.
Right, and
only
so
had a
we only had 975 that applied, and so we were able to honor a lot of those acceptances. And so when you began to look at it, then as they were out on campuses, a lot of parents started dropping out of the program. And then SB 15 passed, and then they put in some restrictions on accessing the funds. And at this point, we're still trying to ascertain what the law is actually stating. But currently, right now, we're projecting we're under that 1,000 mark for that first part of programming. And so it will not be that 10.5 million cost that we were anticipating. And I'm going to go to my colleague, Jill, to reiterate that.
Yes, it would be more like our estimate. Our estimate at for 1,000 kids was about 3.5 million. So now we're looking at about that amount, 3 to 3.5 million.
So do you have any?
ESSER funds.
3.5 million, that's what I was gonna ask. Of the original 10 million we were discussing, how much of that do you just ballpark estimate that we're gonna be using of ESSER funds on this program? 3 million, okay. So that leaves a lot more money for the district to use towards
For
COVID
programming, absolutely.
over the next 2 or 3 years?
3 years.
Over the next 3
Yeah.
years, got it.
ESSER 1, ESSER 3.1, ESSER 3.2, and ESSER 2, Part 1. No, it's not. So I'm going to, sorry.
ESSER 3, 3 years, ESSER 2, 2 years.
Oh, I see.
I have a few questions, you know me.
It's good.
I'm trying to be a visual learner on this. Okay, so, how many students approximately is a teacher responsible for? Is it just vary from grade to grade?
I would say that when you begin to look at, we're at that 1 to 30 kind of ratio in both afternoons. Some are smaller than that, some are higher, but it ranges from 20 to 30 kids that they are responsible for.
Are you finding more the lower elementary to higher elementary, or more sixth graders, or is it just across the board that you see in there?
The last time I saw the numbers, I would say it's pretty consistent across the board. I would say a lot of the sixth graders have requested to go back to campuses.
I bet they have. The teachers, are they being housed in their home schools, or are you putting them somewhere where they can collaborate together? Because you're saying they're team teaching.
They are starting, they are all at their home campuses, their assigned campuses, and that's where they're teaching because of the tools that are available on that campus and teaching materials and such. On Fridays, they are going to Randall High School in a shell space where they're gathering together, and my colleague here, Dr. Jones, back here, is the acting administrator for the virtual instruction program, and he and his team of digital learning are providing professional development, planning opportunities for the teachers to collaborate with one another so that they're ready for the next week.
And how many teachers approximately are doing the virtual teaching right now?
I believe we have 15, correct, Chad? 16. Yes.
Okay.
16 teachers. One of those is special ed support.
Good, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. They are working very hard, and we're very proud of the work that they are doing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll have our delinquent tax collections report. About a month or so ago, the board asked if we could just have an annual report, and so I'll turn it over to our CFO, Ms. Ludwig.
Thank you. Tonight, we have with us Mr. Chip Sutton of the Linebarger firm. He will provide the report that's prepared by he and his staff, and that report will include information on delinquent tax collections for the last year, litigation, bankruptcy cases, tax deferrals and payment agreements, as well as an update on our property value study appeals. And they've saved us a lot of money or provided additional state funds for us through that process. So Chip, if you want to introduce your staff.
This is Cynthia Reed. She's one of the attorneys that works with me here for Lamar. She does house out of our Richmond office here in Lamar CISD. And I asked her to be here tonight so you could meet her. I tend to come by myself, but I thought, well, it might be good for you to see some of the other people that work with me. Good evening, board. Dr. Nevins, it's a pleasure and honor to be here tonight. This is a report, as many of y'all know, that we do on an annual basis. We did our last report in 2020, and so I'm going to go through. I need to put my glasses on, so I apologize. I'm going to go through this report, and it covers a lot of different items, some of which Joe mentioned. It's just a cover page that some of y'all have seen in the past. This first part, well, let me start over. The pandemic has been very difficult for collections, as y'all might expect. And so I'm going to do something different than I have done in previous reports. And I'm going to compare the last, this report's June 1, 2020, July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021. And so I'm going to compare that with the previous report so y'all can see the effect that the pandemic has had. First is litigation. You'll see the suits filed, $435,000, 13 judgments taken, $37,000, total accounts put for sale, three accounts for about $3,900. That's significantly less than our litigation program in previous years, and I mean significantly less. There's several reasons for that. The courts being closed for a while, tax sales not being held for a while, restrictions on what we could file suit on and what we could go forward on. But I'm glad to tell the board that has changed. We are back to, as I talked to my staff in preparing this report, we're back to 95% of where we were before the pandemic. So I think when we do this report in another year or in 6 months, if you would like me to, the time period for the reporting is up to y'all, not to me. You're going to see these numbers be substantially more. But I think you'll be pleased when I get to the collections in a minute, even though the litigation is depressed. The bankruptcy cases are kind of an interesting. You have currently 40 cases for $122,000. That's 1.8% of your tax roll. Just to compare, prior to the pandemic, that's 11 more cases than in 2020 and $44,000 more in bankruptcy. That's substantial. The deferrals are even more drastic. You'll see deferrals, we have 226 deferrals. That's 51 more deferrals and $370,000 more in deferral. Now, some of y'all may not know, I'm sure most of y'all do, a deferral is where over 65 individual or a disabled individual who owns their home as a homestead can go to the appraisal district and file an application with the appraisal district to prevent all collection activities going forward until they either pass away or they sell the property and they no longer own it as their homestead. So obviously that shuts us down. And the important thing of that, not only the dollar amount, 1.6 million, but you can see it's 24% of your total delinquent tax roll. So 24% of your delinquent tax roll we can't touch. I will say, even though that number is high, I have some entities in Fort Bend County that are at 61%. So I think y'all still doing good, even though that's a pretty high number. Payment agreements are a little bit. This is kind of concerning to me, but we don't have a lot of control over it. There's 211 payment agreements, about $270,000, which make up about 5.4% of your delinquent tax roll. That's down from pre-pandemic. One would think that would be up, but there was 10 more pre-pandemic, but it is up in dollar amount for about $3,600. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Yes.
Can you describe what a payment agreement is for everyone,
Sure,
please?
sure. There's two types. We want to work with the tax office, your tax collector, and we want to work with the taxpayer. We do not want to file suit, and if we file suit, we don't want to have to prosecute that suit. It doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't benefit y'all, it doesn't benefit us, it doesn't benefit the taxpayer. And so if a taxpayer approaches us and says, I want to make an agreement to pay my taxes out over time, then we will work with that taxpayer and see if we can reach an agreement for them to pay a portion of the delinquent tax they have due each month. The statutory period that that we can go out is 36 months. I will tell you that we generally don't go out 36 months except in hardship cases, because a 36-month payment agreement, that's covering 3 years, and you can have additional taxes turned over, and it can turn into a really mess. But we do consider hardship issues. The tax office handles homestead payment agreements, and we handle all other payment agreements. And the reason the tax office handles homestead payment agreements is that, pursuant to the legislature and state law, homestead payment agreements are mandatory. And so it'd probably be unfair to the taxpayer for a taxpayer to come to our office and say, I want to do a payment agreement on my property. And we say always, well, what can you pay on a monthly basis? And we may not agree to that, but we always do ask them that, because it's not for us, because we don't know their finances. And so let's say they say $500 a month. And we say, okay, great. And we sign a payment agreement for $500 a month. They still have to go to Rosenberg, because we don't represent Rosenberg. And so if we do that, then it's denying them their right to get a payment agreement, which violates state law. So that's how but we work with them any way we can. And it kind of depresses me and concerns me that during the pandemic, which I think that would be up, that they're down slightly. So that, because we do push it.
Thank you for the explanation. Thank you.
Okay, the mailings. We, like I said, with anything in the pandemic, we kind of scaled back on a lot of the mailings. We generally do 9 mailings a year, but we did not do mailings where we were threatening foreclosure and threatening harsh remedies. We just did not think that was proper during that time period, threatening to take somebody's home away from them and all that. And so that's the reason for the 3 mailings. So far, since this tax year began July 1, 2021, we've already had 3 mailings, July, August, and September. We're scheduled to have the remaining mailings in October, December, January, February, March, April, and June. So we're back on schedule to have 9 mailings a year. The mailings begin in July with kind of informational, educational mailings. Most people don't know, if they haven't been delinquent before, that y'all have a tax lien on their property. I mean, there is a tax lien on their property that can be foreclosed. So it's like, do you know you have a tax lien? Then basically another one is saying, if you want to make arrangements to pay your taxes, please come see us. And then they move on from there to get a little bit more. I mean, we always are courteous, but we do threaten suit, and we do notify them that their property can be sold. And so that's why the mailings this past 12 months are a little less. One thing I added this time that I didn't last time, because I thought you'll find it interesting. A number of legislative sessions ago, the legislature passed 3311 of the tax code, and that allowed for the early turnover of business personal property. Business personal property is the most difficult type of property to collect because it's assessed. Well, not assessed. It's assessed as of January 1 of the tax year. So 2021 was January 2021. Well, as we know, most businesses, a lot of businesses, they're new businesses. By the time we get that tax, that business is out of business, and we're never going to collect that tax unless we can file suit against the owner. So the legislature let it be turned over to us on April of the year instead of July. And so that gives us from April to June to collect on that new tax year. And so this last April through June, we collected on 182 businesses for just over $148,000 due to y'all. And since that 3311 has been instituted by the legislature and it has been enacted by the different entities, we've seen the current delinquencies of BPP really taken care of. I mean, you're always going to have situations where a business goes out of business or they're in bankruptcy or whatever may be the case. But really, the delinquencies on BPP for that 3-month turnover, has really significantly decreased the outstanding delinquencies each year. And so I think was a really good change by the legislature. I'm going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to go back to this one. Okay, this is kind of the brass tacks. So this is the collections it goes back, I think, 10 years. But you'll see the top line is the collections, which is what y'all saw in y'all's bank account, the $2.8 million, the collection percentage. And then the the column to the right is the adjusted collections. That's what we actually brought in. And so I've started adding that column, so 3.9 almost, because some of the collections between 3.9 and 2.8, the difference are paid out in refunds and that type of thing. And so y'all never see it. But I want my entities, especially y'all, to see, we brought in 3.9, you just didn't see 3.9. So now you'll see it's down from the year before, and the percentages are down. But I will say, if you add the business personal property that I just mentioned to that 3.9, you come out to be 4 million. So we're basically in line with previous years. Yes, sir.
Can you explain what you mean by refunds and the discrepancy between the two numbers?
Yeah, the refunds, basically, if when a taxpayer files a protest with the appraisal district, and either the appraisal district decides or ARB decides that the protest is valid, and the taxpayer has paid the taxes, then the taxes that they have paid has to be refunded to the taxpayer, and that has to be done out of current collections. And so after July 1, there are no current collections between July 1 and November, because all the collections that are coming into the tax office are collections we brought in. And so that's pretty much the difference there. We've seen huge refunds for y'all and for other entities in Fort Bend County for the last numerous years, and it's just because of the growth, to be honest with you.
One other question. When you collect on delinquent accounts, do you also typically recoup legal fees, your costs?
It's well, let me start off with one thing. It's a good question. We're at no cost to y'all. Y'all don't pay us a penny, the cost or anything. Our costs are set by the legislature. So what happens is when July 1 comes about, or April 1, depending on business personal property, we have a 20% percentage that's added to the debt of the taxpayer. So if we go and collect this account, then y'all get y'all's interest with 1% per month. Y'all get your levy balance, interest at 1% per month, and your 12% penalty. Then we get the 20% fee. So only if we collect do we get that fee. So we don't add anything on. And if let's say we file a suit on an account or whatever it may be, and we incur $250 in title costs or whatever other costs we incur out of pocket, if we don't collect on that account, we don't look to y'all to pay that. I mean, it's either a bad debt or we just keep on looking for the taxpayer to pay it. So that's the thing. It's statutorily added, so it's just an add-on.
I'm just curious, when you've got, say, somebody owes $10,000 and they paid $5 of it,
Mm-hmm.
how is that money allocated? Is it 20% goes to y'all, and then how does it work?
It's just prorated just on 5,000. Y'all get exactly what y'all would get if it was 10,000. You don't get the whole 10,000, obviously, but
Sure.
They look at the 5,000. Y'all get y'all's levy balance for the 5,000. Y'all get y'all's 12% penalty, the interest, whatever is accrued, and then we get our 20% on that 5,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and and it's just a partial payment basically, and that happens quite a bit. It really does, quite a bit. So I'll go back, unless there's any other questions on this. I do expect this percentage to jump back up to where it was before. It's just been an interesting time. I was really pleased with y'all that our collection stayed as good as they did, because I thought we were going off a cliff, to be quite honest with you. So I thought that was pretty good. And this is just a graph for 5 years, because we wanted to make it larger because it was so small the other day. Just showing you what that previous slide, the blue is y'all's delinquent balance. The yellow is y'all's collections, the actual thing you saw in the bank account. And then the green is the adjusted. So it's just those two columns and y'all's delinquencies. You will see that your delinquencies have increased, which would be expected in a pandemic, just like everything else. 6.8, I believe 6.9. I do expect that to go down, and I do expect y'all's collections. When I report to you next time, your collections to be much higher because there's so much more to collect. So, okay, one more thing, and then definitely questions. One of the other services we provide to the district is property value studies. And basically, this is basically, as y'all know, property values are used in state funding formula. And, and our property value studies try to lower the share of education borne by the district, and a large amount is borne by the state. And we do this each year. This is the 2020 property value study appeal. We reduced, or my team reduced, y'all's value by $150 million from the comptroller's preliminary value estimate. That means that y'all will get approximately $1.136 million more in state aid for that 2020-21 funding year. Since the past 20 years, to show you how I was impressed with that 1.136, to show you how large that is compared to previous years. From 20 to 2020, we reduced y'all's value $727 million and increased by a $6.645 million. So 1.136 million this past year, and 6.645 over 20 years. So I thought that was really impressive. One thing I want to point out is that this really helps the taxpayer, because what you're looking at is that the state has to pay y'all more money, and that takes a burden off the taxpayer. And so I think that's an important thing to look at, and that's one of the things, one of the reasons that this is such a good tool, and especially here, because we do this every year, and we've had great results for y'all. And the other thing I want to point out is that we do this for free. We consider this a value-added service, and we've done this for free for y'all for as long as I've been here. I've been here 14 years, and my understanding, what the fee would be on this, if a fee was charged, is about 8% to 10% of the added, state aid. So basically, $114,000 in attorney's fees. So that's one of our value-added services, and we will continue to do this. I have a team, our property value study department, and that's all they do. I mean, I don't have anything to do with this, but that's all they do, and they do it without me asking. They look at the comptroller's reports, and they go forward and do this work. So,
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
All right, well, thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
You have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you. Next is the bond debt. The bond update.
All right, so next we have Mr. Junty with our bond update.
All right, good evening, Board and Dr. Nivens. Bond update. First, I wanted to define one term that we use as we use our construction speak, and that's pay applications. We talk about that. Wanted to put that into context. It's really an invoice. So when we have work that's done in the district by a general contractor, that pay application goes to the architects of record on that project. They review it and make sure that the work has been completed. That then goes to our facilities and planning department. They review it as well, make sure it's been completed and completed well, and then they sign off on it and send it to accounting for payment. In the month of August, we had 70 pay applications that were approved for a total of $12,845,722.44. Wanted to show you a couple projects. One that's winding down, and that is our transportation fuel tank replacement. What we did is we added this new fuel station here. It's a much taller fuel island for our vehicles. And also these are new above-ground tanks. We removed the ones that were below the ground and replaced them with above-ground tanks. Obviously, that's better for the environment. Next, one of our elementaries that we have broken ground on, Phelan Elementary School. This is with the structural slab down. We're actually starting to erect steel at that project, and it is on schedule. Any questions on our bond updates?
Thank you very much.
All right.
All right, Board, next we have House Bill 547, Homeschool and UIL activities, and so we'll ask Mr. Bates to come to the mic.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Nivens. Good evening, Board of Trustees. Tonight's presentation is an information item that provides an overview of Texas House Bill 547 that was passed this past summer in the Texas 87th legislative session this past summer. So House Bill 547 provides an opportunity for all homeschool students in the state of Texas to be able to participate in UIL activities in their residing zoning districts. And they can participate in the areas of academics, athletics, and as well as music. The bill required all participating schools to be able to make a decision in the state of Texas for all participating schools. However, in a multi-high school district like Lamar Consolidated ISD, that decision had to be a comprehensive one-size-fits-all decision. So it could not have been made by a campus-by-campus basis decision. All school districts had to also notify their district executive committee, which is known as the DEC or the DEC. You may hear those terms used interchangeably, as well as the UIL throughout the UIL portal. And that decision had to be made on August 1st of 2021, this school year. The UIL Legislative Council also amended some of the UIL rules to make sure that there was basically rules put in place for students that are going to participate for homeschool students if a district chose to allow them to participate in UIL. And they tried to marry those with some of the rules that are already participating for current public school students to participate in UIL. So some of those decisions, as you can see on the left on the screen, are it requires students to be able to once again first reside in their home zone area. So a student could not go from one side of the school district and then participate in another school district. They'd have to participate in the school that they're zoned to go to. In the various sections of the UIL Constitution, they must also, of course, it covered things such as being able to transfer for athletic purposes. It requires recruiting, so it does prohibit, of course, coaches from being able to recruit from across the entire district and things like that. But also still has the age limit requirement in as well, which of course is the age of 19. It also required if any student was going to actually move within the district within the 12 months, that requirement had to go through the district executive committee as well, also as you can see, known as the DEC. It also established academic eligibility, which means that students must also have make a proficiency or meet proficiency on a nationally recognized assessment test. So things such as the ITBS or a Stanford 9, it does not automatically require students to have to be able to take the STAR test, however. So students in a homeschool setting still must also be able to meet proficiency on whatever standardized test that program requires them to take. And it also provides documentation for each student it provides an opportunity for each student they must show that they're grade eligible, so think no pass, no play. They must still also show that they are actually meeting the standard and basically passing their courses as well. Now, there were two things that the district had to consider in order for two major decisions that they had to kind of consider in making the decision on whether they're going to allow homeschool students to be able to participate. And one of those was how can district ensure that students receive only 60 minutes of activity, which is equivalent to our 60 minutes that's required by UL within a school day. They can, of course, participate outside of school, but inside of school hour, they can only receive 60 minutes of activity. And the other one was actually the kind of a little unclear guidelines that are set by UL as far as how it impact redistricting and alignment, which of course this is a redistricting and alignment year for all the schools in the state of Texas this year. So for for the fact of the things that UIL and of course some of these rules are a little unclear and how it would impact currently and future ramifications for the school district, of course LCISD this school year chose not to allow homeschool students to participate in UIL. Now, that doesn't mean that they still do not have an opportunity to participate in UIL, but what it does now, it kind of now allows them to be able to choose any charter schools that's within our zone, as far as being able to participate in UIL. So, I have a chart that's up here on the left that I think that makes the story stand out a little bit more. So, out of the 1,027 school districts that are in the state of Texas, only 21 school districts in the state elected for students, for homeschool students to be able to participate in UIL. Many of our school districts, many of our schools, all of them are 5A with the exception of George Ranch, which is a 6A school district. So out of the 5A and 6A school districts, as you see on this chart right here, as you can see, none of them are actually in our area. So none of the school districts within our immediate area have elected for any of our homeschool students to be able to participate in UIL activities. Are there any questions?
Thought you were thinking, sorry. All right.
I do have a question. Do you know why there are so few schools that have opted into this?
Well, once again, I think a lot of it has to do with a little bit of the ambiguity of the rules that have how it will impact school districts kind of more so in the future. So even though we made the decision for it to be no this year, there will still be opportunities more than likely for a school district to still, once the rules are a little bit more defined, for us to make a clear decision on whether we want to participate there or not. So I'll give you a perfect example. And it's one that there's always kind of loopholes, but one ramification for any school district could be such as if you have students to transfer now to a homeschool program, there's also a possibility that the school district could lose funding for that because the student is no longer enrolled as a student as far as UIL. So homeschool students are not considered still enrolled in a school district if they're allowed to be able to participate. So it's kind of a going back and forth model if it winds up being a benefit for students to now unenroll from the school district, but they can still participate with a school district in UIL. That's some of the things that many of the districts will also look at as well.
Do you know when the deadline will be for next year?
That I do not know. They have not released that information just yet.
All right, thank you.
I did
Great
know.
question.
Last year when we were doing virtual, there were students that were being virtually taught and they did participate in UIL.
Correct.
Was it a headache? Was it hard to manage?
As far as students being able to participate in athletics and
Well, yeah, to go back and forth because they would not be on campus, then have to come on campus, then leave campus. Is that what they did? 'Cause
I'll
I know
defer to our athletic director.
Because like football, that football's fourth period, and then they'd have to come back for the afternoon.
Yes, ma'am. It definitely presented some challenges based on the class period of that athletic period, as well as if they were going to be out of school for the day for a tournament or leaving early to get to a contest. And for our coaches to keep an eye on those students when it came to academic eligibility and conduct. It just took away a little bit from the team atmosphere of having those students from first period through the rest of the day. Some of the things that we were traditionally used to being able to do, we had to change our way of thinking a little bit. But it definitely presented some challenges.
And the students would have to provide their own transportation, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I can see why some school districts might not want to do it the first year, want to see how everything plays out. Okay, thank you for your report.
I have a question. And so you said in October, we're supposed to get some more clarification on what this looks like, and, okay.
on what the rules will be and how they apply to homeschool students that are going to participate in public schools. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll have more information going forward, so that'd be helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you so much. Thank y'all.
All right, board, so next we have parent involvement update. And so as we've been discussing about our protocol, as we've been hearing, and so this is gonna be a report by Dr. Mossage about how our parents can be involved on the campuses.
This is an updated information item in regard to an future action item for a resolution for Parent Involvement Week for Lamar CISD. So in October, in the October meeting, we are asking for a resolution for Parent Involvement Week for November 15th through the 19th. We wanted to communicate with you guys that in 2021-22, our COVID protocols do allow for visitors before and after school, as well as visiting your student at campus. You also are able to help in the library and some other areas where students are not present. But we're not going to keep a parent from their child. We have opportunities where our parents at the elementary level are actually going to lunch. Now there are schedules for that so that we can control the number of people, but we are allowing parents into schools. So with that spirit in mind, we are asking for the Board of Trustees to consider approval of a resolution in October proclaiming November 15th through the 19th as Parent Involvement Week in Lamar CISD, thus supporting our parent engagement. Proclaiming this week as Parent Involvement Week supports Lamar CISD's belief that parent involvement is valued and does have a positive impact on student achievement. As you begin to look at the special events that are occurring, we encourage these to happen at the campuses during this week. And these can include the following: in person and or some virtually. They can host a parent night involving students and their families in a learning event such as a reading night or math night or STEAM night. There are book fairs that usually have a theme, and teachers and staff dress up and students dress up in an identified theme. And then a lot of Title I campuses are having parent meetings that review student performance and review the parent compact. And so that you could see some pictures of some of the things that we have done in the past, you have right over here a parent that is working some activities with his child, and then a kind of a makerspace kind of piece in the beginning, in the middle, what was happening at a parent night, as well as you can see the theme on the right-hand side. So some ways that our schools have shown events during this week. And then in the month of December, we can provide a report on some of the activities that were presented, that were done in that month of November. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, there was a Boy Scout group that contacted me, and they said basically the same thing that the parents said tonight, that the PTO, and there are some restrictions on the activities.
Okay.
Is that accurate? Are the Boy Scout, I don't know exactly what they might be doing in the school. I think they might be visiting classes to find kids that are interested. Is that kind of thing allowed?
That would not be allowed because we're not allowing visitors to come in when it's not their child.
Okay, so that's where I wanted to set up, and I wanted to confirm that. Was that part of the policy we passed? Because I remember reading that policy a lot, and I don't remember there being restrictions on visitors in our schools, except for when the county COVID color meter was red, we would screen for COVID in the front office. That's the only restriction, so if I'm wrong on that, refresh my memory.
According to what I have seen and what I understand in the COVID protocols is that we allow visitors before school and after school because we're not compelling our children to be there before school or after school. And that if we're allowing kids or parents to come in that are going to be around other kids, the kids are having to be there, it's compulsory attendance. And so for those particular children and their safety, we're not allowing the parents to be near anybody else but their own child. Now, before school, after school, and PTO functions at night and such where things are not compelled, our parents are not necessarily compelled to be there, we are allowing those events to where Boy Scouts and other programs can promote their activities and encourage kids to join in those activities.
I'm trying to get to the point of they're not allowed. Because the COVID policy we passed said that the board can change that and not the administration. It has to have board approval. So I'm trying to understand the policy that we passed August the 5th, and then we revisited on August the 19th. Is that restricting visitors in our schools?
I'll take that.
Am I not?
No, I got it. So the original policy and the practice that we passed on the 19th, so we never restricted visitors. What we did say was, if we were at a certain level, then visitors would be screened. But in that vein, we said that parents could only have access to their own child, and visitors would come in, so everyone would be able to come in before or after school. During the school day, we were not allowing others to have access to other people's children. And so if they wanted to come in and work in the workroom, work in the library where there were no other kids, if the PTA wanted to come in and wanted to do those things, then they could do that as long as there were no other students around. But we did not want to grant access to individuals, to children that were not their own.
I understand that. This is a fine point that is affecting volunteerism in our school, so that's why I'm trying to truly understand what, did the administration change that? Because I don't remember it being in our policy. I remember the screening at the front office if it's on red. I don't remember anything else in there, so my memory is failing me.
We didn't change it. That was the rule from the beginning.
Okay.
And we've had discussions on it, and that they could be, because we wanted them to be in there and assist the teachers. And so that was gonna be my question, as she mentioned tonight too, like you said, the PTO, it was my understanding that you just couldn't go hang out with other people's kids, but you could go in the workroom and make copies and laminate and all these things, so it's still supporting the teachers, but also respecting the other parents and not being around their children. And like the same thing when we had the lunch tables, we said, you know, we would have a designated area, and like at the elementary schools we visited, they're staggering when parents can come in, like this grade level, so that you don't have everybody in there at once, so.
So, and that's when we're on red from the county perspective?
No,
Or is that all the time?
All the time. The red is just screening them versus, because the initial, if I remember correctly, the initial was at the 3 different color codes, and we changed it just to red, they would get screened, so, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Because I believe that before it was yellow, orange, or red, and we changed it just for red.
That's
But
correct.
I read from the beginning that it was before and after school and lunch with your own child.
And then
And I
you could
believe
support
that
the
was-
teachers in those areas.
Right. And if a parent needed to come in during a teacher's break time or conference time and be in her room as long as no other children are in there, that's the possibility too. But we're just trying to restrict parents being around other children. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Does that answer your point, though? I know you're saying is it a okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, so, now we go to our future action items.
Yes, turn it over to you.
All right, go to our future action items, and so, we will be as brief as possible with these next ones, and so we will have Dr. Moses come back, and she will discuss our district and campus improvement plans.
It is that time again. Future action item of October 2021 will be considering approval of the 2021-2023. Our district improvement plan will be a 2-year plan, and our 2021-22 campus improvement plans. The district improvement plan and campus improvement plan, as you guys know, are developed, reviewed, and revised annually for the purpose of improving student performance. The DIP and the SIP will target and address student needs and will contain a comprehensive needs assessment that will identify priority areas and needs of improvement. It will align to the LCISD 5-year strategic plan and will respond to the collective district and campus performance data, i.e. math performance that you saw in the district was quite low. There will be articulated action steps that we will take to improve in that. You also saw that our junior high campuses had struggled both in math and reading. You would see identified areas in which we would be addressing that as well. These plans are living documents and will receive the necessary revisions throughout the year to address continually evolving campus and student needs, especially as they continue to access the data from map testing and progress reports and report cards and attendance, et cetera. I wanted to show you an example of what the district or the campus improvement plans will look like. Last year, we piloted the Plan for Learning, and so all of our campuses will be using Plan for Learning, as well as our district improvement plan will also be using the Plan for Learning. And so you will see the goal identified, the performance objective is the SMART objective, and then you will see the action steps, which are called strategies. And then you see the identification of the different formative assessments that will occur throughout the year with the campuses on where they are at with those particular actions. When you look at our last year's previous district improvement plan, it was more of a Word document where you had certain objectives and the superintendent's SMART goals, and then we had a number of strategies. What you are going to see this year as we transition to Plan for Learning is going for the district improvement plan being a 2-year plan, and then the goals or the strategic priorities with the different objectives are outlined, and you will see SMART goals from the departments with different activities that are going to support those different objectives of the strategic plan. One of the things we wanted to ensure is that you had plenty of time to be able to review the information. We received that feedback from you guys last year. And so you guys will receive the SIPs for beginning to review on 10/1. And then on 10/6, you will receive the district improvement plan for review. And then it will come up for considering of approval on October 19th, where that will be an action item. Do you have any questions?
Will these be sent to us, or are you gonna have a place online that we can review them?
We actually have a place online. I think it's going to be a choice, that we have a place that you can just review all of them so that you don't have to go into a flash drive, which will
Okay.
be probably easy access. But of
Yes.
course, if you want the paper copy, we would be glad to oblige if that was needed.
So we'll be notified when these are available for us to start reviewing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But the
thank you.
dates will stay the same, whether it's digital or whether it's paper copy.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much.
All right, board, next we have discussion of purchase of charter bus services.
So next month, we will be asking you to approve the purchase of charter bus services. This process establishes an annual contract for charter bus transportation services. That would be for things such as field trips, band and orchestra trips, athletics, and other Lamar CISD approved activities as requested. This award is designed as an annual contract with the opportunity for 4 renewals. That's if the vendor and the district agree to all the terms. Right now, we're under a contract with 8 awarded vendors. Our RFP number 152021RL actually requested vendors to submit proposals that include the trip pricing, safety profiles, fleet availability, bus tracking capabilities, insurance, cleaning, and COVID safety protocols. The athletics, performing and visual arts, and transportation departments are working with purchasing on bid specifications and award recommendations. The purchasing department notified 16 vendors of this opportunity, as well as advertised according to the state of Texas regulations. We notified 16 vendors, starting with the 8 current vendors, also some under a Google search, and then vendors that registered at the Lamar CISD website. The evaluation criteria will include such things as pricing, services offered, the company's safety records, experience with similar services as we're requesting, and other standard qualifications and capabilities. The proposals are due by September the 28th. We expect a few fewer proposals this year due to the pandemic-related issues and limited travel over the last year. I'd be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
When we use charter buses, is that because of the length or mileage of a trip, or when we use that or the LCISD bus, is that?
Many times it is the length of the trip. Robert, anything to add? No, typically that's all it is,
So
comfort.
that just depends upon where they're going and what they're doing, how long they're gonna be gone.
Right.
Okay.
My question was is it due to the shortage or is it due to this? But that answered.
Great.
Thank you very much.
All right, next board, we'll turn over to Mr. Junty for a discussion of amendment of RFP for our HVAC full maintenance agreement.
Okay, thank you. The district has an HVAC maintenance contract with Texas Air Systems. When we add additional campuses, we come back to the board to get approval to add those to our contract, to amend the contract. So we would like to add Thomas E. Randall High School, Harry Wright Junior High, and then the Development Center, the Network Operations Center. That's not a new area. There were 2 HVAC units there that were under a separate contract that technology was managing, and we'd like to take that over as district-wide. So that's why that's added as well. And that is at an additional cost of $24,300 per year added to the contract.
We need AC, so.
Yes, ma'am. We need it working well.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
All right, so these next items, I think Mr. Junty has the next few items.
I'm it. Next is the discussion of architect contract for Elementary School 33. This would be to approve VLK Architects on a repeat design for Elementary School 33, and this campus location would be intended to provide relief for Hubenack and Adolphus Elementary Schools.
I just want to say, I've been contacted a lot, and I know Mr. Hunt has too. That Hubenac, those folks have, they really need some relief over there. And
Yes,
these
sir.
parents are gonna be thrilled to hear that, so.
I've said my staff will actually see me do a happy dance. They have, and it probably won't be pretty, but it'll be joyful when we do that. So yes, sir, we're working hard on that. Any other questions?
I just wanted to add that those were some of the elementary schools that Dr. Nivens and I went to visit this week, so we got to see all the portables.
Mhm.
That, you know, in person, you can really feel the need.
Yes.
And so, they have a great attitude about it, but I know they're ready for some relief.
They do, absolutely.
Well, unfortunately for Hubenac, I know they've had, Adolph was supposed to help, and then Bentley was supposed to help. They just keep growing over there.
They're making do, but
I know.
they're ready, so it's good.
But it's 33. I'm trying to remember 32 and 31. Oh, well.
I just like to take the time, you know, whenever I can, I always celebrate our staff. So I want to celebrate our principal, Mr. B, at Hubenac, because they are about 1,300 students. And they have a lot of portables out there, and they've named them the Husky Huts, I believe. And so what they've done is they've really taken a situation and they've taken the lemons and made lemonade. And so as we walked the campus, we saw a lot of positive attitudes from staff and students, even though I think that campus is holding twice the number that it should. But it's all about the attitude and it's all about the leadership. So I just want to tell the principal we really appreciate his leadership in that mindset on that campus.
Absolutely. Yes. Next is an RFP for construction manager at risk for both Terry High School and George Junior High School renovations and additions, phases 1 and phases 2. What we have here is a list that encompasses both phases for each of the schools. For Terry High School, this will encompass replacing the roof, repairing leaks in the auditorium, new water lines and water fountains, rekeying the interior, upgrading the HVAC system, additional lighting in the library, and upgrade the electrical distribution in the campus. For George Junior High School, we have a wall to remove in the ag shop for better visibility, renovate the choir classroom, replace campus-wide flooring, replace casework in the classrooms, replace exterior door in the athletic area, upgrade to LED lighting, replace the sanitary lines in the kitchen and the boys' locker room, replace the roof, and replace the serving line doors. So a pretty substantial list for both of those campuses. Any questions on that RFQ?
I have one question. So this is all from the district facilities assessment that was done. These are,
Yes, all of these were identified as level 1 priorities, priority ones, in the evaluation that went before the bond committee for 2020.
checking these off the list.
Checking them off the list.
All right, thank you.
So they are all bond projects?
Yes, ma'am. This is completely bond 2020 funded. All right, next is a sanitary sewer line investigation for Campbell Elementary. What we're doing, we have a third party come in and investigate those sanitary sewer lines. It's the first step in addressing some leveling issues. We're seeing some things with the campus that leads us to believe that may be an issue. So we go with a third party that will then provide us with a report and some recommendations that then we can then look at making necessary repairs to the campus.
And so, boy, we bring that forward because when we start talking about investigating sewer lines, that can become pretty expensive. Especially when you start putting cameras and smoke tests and all these things that you have to do and lift stations. Becomes very expensive. And so we just wanted to give you a heads up because as we start going through, you know, it just depends on what we find.
What we find.
What we find.
Yes,
but
and that's
just
why.
wanted to give the board a heads up because that become pretty expensive.
Right, we'll get the report and then we'll start generating. We need to find out what, if anything, is there or not there.
Any questions? Thank you.
Next is discussion of the Texas Accessibility Standards Review and Inspection for Bernard Clifton Terrell Junior Elementary School. This is a report that we run on every single construction project, that we need to make sure that anything we do when we build a campus or renovate, that it meets current ADA standards. And this law, by law, this has to be conducted for all of our projects. It's really a two-part project. They do an extensive plan review as we're doing our design development and construction documents. They review those, and then once the campus or area is renovated, they come back through and do a site visit to make sure that we're in compliance with all those areas, and if we're not, then you have some time to comply. So it's a two-part process.
Any questions? Thank you.
Next is discussion of schematic design for the Lamar CISD Police Station. So what have we been doing? We're working, Facilities and Planning is working with our Lamar CISD Police leadership. We've had some meetings and discussions. We have also taken our first field trip to a couple other ISD police departments in the area to take a look at what they have that may work for us, get some ideas, some best practices, and they've been very productive. We've had a lot of good exchange with those. We visited the one in Cy-Fair, and we visited the one in Katy so far. We're going to take a look at a couple more. And this gives you an idea of where it's going to be located. We currently own this 16 acres of land, and you can see this is the trailer stadium for orientation and some of our buildings here along Avenue I. This shows you, this is just a rough draft showing you an approximate 15,000 square foot police station on that piece of property, and the way that it's been oriented, that it could be enlarged at that time. Again, this parking is just here kind of for orientation. That would not be part of this project.
Mr. Junti, on that last slide, it says future expansion. Would that just be like a shell space that would then be utilized for additional space for the police station?
What we would do is we would orient there's a way to orient the building so that your hallways and other access and egress, it's easy to add on to the building by having those hallways run in the right direction and have different entry points. And also the way that you construct your roof and other structures so that you can more easily add on to a building. What we see is police departments over time, as the district gets larger, they add more officers, they need more space, and they go through expansion. Cy-Fair is on their third expansion. So it does take place. The main thing when I've had conversations with these chiefs is build it big from the start. So 15,000 square feet is a pretty good sized building to begin with. So again, we're looking at how best to utilize that space.
And then one other question, where it says future parking, that wouldn't all be necessary for the police station. Would that also be for like trailer stadium and?
Again, the future parking is just there for reference. It's not anything to do with the police department project. That's just a possibility of later on that area could be used for parking that would be advantageous for other events at the stadium. But that's, again, the parking is that's just for reference sake. It's not a part of the police department project.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Apologize.
No. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Chief Warren.
All right, moving on. We have some technology items. We have a district-wide iPad refresh that will be coming to you. We have about 8,100 iPads that currently can no longer receive iOS updates. Once that occurs and they can't be updated, they then become a security risk to the district, and we pull them out of use. So they'll be, what we say, refreshed or replaced. Also, we'll have to purchase additional cases because in the new ones, they're changing the configuration of the model just slightly, so the old case won't work. So the approximate cost of each of those new iPads is $395, and the new case is about $30.
Any questions? Yes. Mr.
We talked about how there's companies that can buy back these old iPads from us.
Yes.
Do we have an idea of what each iPad will?
We do have a company that we provide those for, that they take them off our hands. And the average is about $75 to $90 per iPad that we sell back to them.
Okay.
And that money is brought back into technology to
Just
be
into like a
repurposed.
general operating, or it doesn't go into reimbursing this fee, it just goes back into the technology?
It goes back in technology. We use it for install of other items. Yeah, it stays in the technology area.
Another project that I've asked the team to investigate is looking at our policy and laws to see how can we support families that don't have access to devices or internet. And so if we are gonna sell these back or, sell them back to a company and get $75 or $90, would it be more feasible for us to give those to families that are in need? And so we're investigating that now to see if that'll be a possibility. And if families need it and they can use it, then we want to be able to provide those services to our families. And so we're investigating that possibility.
I absolutely love that right there.
But if they can't
But
be
gift of
updated, they wouldn't
funds-
be secure, right?
Well,
Right, they wouldn't be secure, but they wouldn't be on our network.
Right, yeah,
And
that's,
so it's solely for families that don't have access to a device at that price. And so if it's something they can use and they can be able to use it at home for some kind of instructional purposes. We always talk about instruction and academic success. So we want to be able to do that for our families if we can.
Thank you for looking into that, yeah. that's good.
absolutely, we're exploring it. And again, to your point, the level of security needed at someone's home is not when we have student information that we need to guard and those types of things. The level of security on our network is different than a home network.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions?
All right, discussion of our network fiber connections. What we're looking to do as we continue to create a stronger network is a second connection, a redundant connection, I call it, between Rosenberg and Fulshear data centers will be installed, increasing reliability. Part of the project, we have 6 campuses that will use the Brazos River for orientation. They're on the wrong side of the river. So we're going to move those campus connections once we do this to our Fulshear NOC, and that will also increase their reliability. We have some issues with the fiber that feeds those campuses. They get cut during construction projects. Sometimes they get damaged by animals chewing through them, those types of things, that if we have them pointed in the other direction, that will help us. So everything we're looking for is a more reliable network with more uptime. And the campuses that will be moved to the Fulshear NOC are there.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
All right, discussion of wireless heat map surveys. We have recording devices on all of our buses. And when there's an issue and a campus or a facility requests video from a bus due to some incident that may have occurred, right now the transportation group has to go out and physically pull that and download that information off of that bus. What this will do is it will put wireless access points in our, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong, I'm ahead of myself. Heat map surveys. Thank you, sir. Heat map surveys. We are looking to move from wireless access points that they roughly serve about 25 devices, and these will service 60, so they'll increase our capabilities greatly. And as we move to online testing in 2023, we need to be able to have connectivity where we're not overloading our access points. So what this allows us to do is do a heat map so that when we move to those access points, we have a better idea where to place them so that we have good overlap and that points aren't overloaded.
Any questions?
Sorry about that, I got ahead of myself.
You're doing
All right,
a lot
let's
of
talk about
these.
transportation now.
Right.
So, as I said, when we have an issue that we need to pull information off of the bus cameras, right now they have to go out and get it. Right now, what our plan is to install these wireless access points that as the buses pull back into either the Fulshear or the Rosenberg Transportation Center, that information will be wirelessly downloaded to servers there. So then when there is an issue where they need to pull it, it's already sitting on the server. And it will be at both our transportation centers. Any questions on that one?
Any questions? All right, thank you
That's
very
it.
much. You're done. Okay. I think are you still going? for the future consent, or do I? Okay, no, my turn. So, are there any future consent, so we're on page 3, number 12. Any future consent agenda items that you would like to have pulled from the future consent agenda list? No? You looking? Oh, okay. Everybody good? All right. So it is 8:40. We're adjourning to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082, the Open Meetings Act, to discuss personnel, land acquisition, or consultation with our attorney. Did you have to bring- We are now back in open session. It is, thank you, 10:15 p.m. We have a quorum with the exception of Mr. Hubenak. Are there any motions to be made? None? Are there any future agenda items that you would like to add?
I don't know if this is agenda or information, but isn't it time that we started naming some of the schools from the 2020 bond?
What is that process? I don't know.
Start that process.
I have not done that yet.
Yeah, we could bring that to the October meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, because if we're already talking about 33 and 34, it'd be a lot easier if we had a name on it.
Right. So yeah, we'll have,
And
we'll have
we're already-
Chris's team bring the process and everything to the October meeting.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Got that, Karen? Any other future agenda items? Okay. Are there any upcoming meetings and/or events? I know of one that several of you are going to.
Flying to Dallas.
Going to the TASB conference in Dallas. That'll be nice. Okay, well, the meeting is adjourned. It is 10:16 p.m.